Let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers versus Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, this is a game as a bettor you look at and you're like, oh, Pittsburgh is going to cover the spread. It is a big spread. I'll get you with that in a little bit, Brad. But, Pittsburgh versus Jacksonville. Jacksonville scores more points than you think they do. They're pretty good in terms of covering. They just covered against the Packers, gave Packers a run for their money.
Oh, they did. Big time.
And it was a trap game for the Packers. And
it was.
Jacksonville's a perfect trap team because they score points. Jay Gruden, I've been saying this, maybe he's not everybody's favorite head coach, but like Norv Turner wasn't a great head coach, but every single time he was a coordinator, his team was like awesome,
Well, here's the thing, Jacksonville, they didn't really score a whole lot of points in that game. Okay, they had a punt return for a touchdown.
Right.
And there were like two other plays in that game that kind of went their way due to calls, but they did give Green Bay a run for their money, and they can play defense.
Yeah.
Right. So if you look at them and you say, well, they're Jacksonville, which already has a stigma, a -1,
right,
and they're 1-8, so we should just roll this team. And it's not going to happen,
right,
because that defense has pride, and they will come and they will hate you.
Is Jacksonville 1-8 at this point? It's been a while since I checked.
Yeah.
Holy moly! So their one win is in Week 1 against the Colts.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Which is odd because I actually thought, and I watched that game, I thought that the Colts outplayed Jacksonville in that game. Meanwhile, I think that the Jacksonville Jaguars have outplayed other teams and not won. I'm surprised to hear that they're 1-8 right now. I really am.
Yeah, right. I know it's tough to know that they're that bad, right?
Yeah.
It is a shock. But now they will bring it, man.
Yeah, and I was going to say the Steelers, on the other hand, you and me, we did a preview on the Pittsburgh Steelers versus Dallas Cowboys, and I talked about this yesterday on my other podcast, and when we posted that preview, Steelers Nation came out and they said, I expect to be disappointed. And we saw, I think it was Garrett Gilbert, and it was the week before Dallas's bye week. It was like Dallas was in the Super Bowl. I mean, they were playing, they had all this energy. Pittsburgh eventually came back and won that game, but it was like in doubt for a while. And I was sweating it because I picked them in my survivor pool that week.
I mean, I think that Pittsburgh was down by double digits in the fourth, no?
I can't remember, but that doesn't.
10. They were down 10, I believe.
I mean, either way, it would have felt like it, but I don't remember. All I remember is thinking, geez, they're not going to cover because I bet on it.
But that's also a classic trap game for Pittsburgh because, you got this team that everyone thinks stinks and they can't bring it. But we know in this league, man, you take the field with another team, any weekend they can bring it.
Yep.
They can rally and get it together. And also you face teams that aren't really a good matchup for you. That happens too. So that's why they play the game, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas couldn't stop a cold. I mean, they sucked. Everybody was passing on them. Everybody was running on them. And then they show up and they play their game of the year against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh ended up winning. So Pittsburgh right now, the only undefeated team in the league still. Their four receivers, are incredible. When James Washington is your fourth option, I think James Washington would be a number 1 receiver on some teams in the NFL.
It's quite the squad. They know how to draft receivers, don't they?
Man, or they know what they're looking for, and they, you get undrafted guys there. And they're all late round picks. I mean, JuJu was pretty early. Maybe even Diontae Johnson's. I feel like he might have been like a day 2 pick. You correct me if I'm wrong, guys. People comment below, but. Claypool also was a day 2. So I guess they don't draft super late guys. I think Antonio Brown was a late pick way back in the day. But to your point, I mean, whoever they get, it just always works. Whereas the New England Patriots, you can draft first-round wide receivers, and it never works.
Yeah, they can't draft talent. It's an odd deal, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Has being a GM and a coach ever really been a good idea? Like, has that ever been a winning strategy? Well, I don't think it's ever worked.
I guess for Bill Belichick, effectively it works, 7 times. And the Patriots and how they run things, it's the only one I can think of, really. But
I don't think, even through all of that, I don't think he was a good GM.
Yeah,
that was the thing about them, is they never really had more talent than
anybody.
Right.
They were smarter.
They were smarter and better prepared.
Yeah.
At that, and we could see that on the field.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. Pittsburgh, though, it doesn't matter like who they have, and some of it is play calling, some of it's Ben Roethlisberger, being so consistent over the years. And I like James Conner as a running back, but Pittsburgh literally doesn't need to throw. Back to this game, Jacksonville, I think what they do, their best, you mentioned they can play defense. I think they're, from what I've seen and experienced, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe that they're better in the defensive line and stopping the run. Pittsburgh last week blew the doors off of Cincinnati. And they didn't actually, let me say this. I don't think they blew the doors off of Cincinnati. I think they played just a pretty controlled Pittsburgh Steelers game. You look up at the scoreboard and it wasn't ever competitive. Pittsburgh can do that, but they're on the road. Historically, Pittsburgh isn't as good on the road as they are at home in terms of covering spread.
Sure.
The spread, Brad, Bovada has Pittsburgh -10 versus Jacksonville. Who would you take there?
I would actually take Pittsburgh, to be honest. I know we just got done saying that Jacksonville can bring it. The quarterback is only going to be in his third start. In Lambeau this past week, the wind was like 30 miles an hour. And that's kind of like the great equalizer, especially for a team like Green Bay.
That's why I like to bet the under on those games, those big wind games, right?
As soon as I found that out, I thought, oh boy, this is going to be one of those days. And it was exactly what I thought it would be. So I actually do think Pittsburgh rolls. Now, Big Ben is starting, right?
He will be, yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So I do think they cover.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville will do a fine job on James Conner, but Pittsburgh, man, I don't have stats in front of me or anything, but when I watch these teams and I do rotate all the teams in the NFL in, they go empty backfield, I think, more than any other team in the league at this point. What I'm saying is Pittsburgh doesn't care if they have to run the ball. They're there because their receivers are that good. I cannot believe James Washington is the fourth receiver in this offense. It's just nuts, man. It's nuts. And Claypool gets better every week. Early in the week I picked Jacksonville because I was burned in Dallas and it's 10 points in the audio. Look, I'm not going to bet the game. If this was Steelers at home -10, I would bet the Steelers. This week I'm going to stay away, but I am switching my pick back over to the Steelers because how can you pick against the Steelers, man? They're undefeated. Their defense is playing better. They just handled business, but I'd like to see them show up and really destroy a team at some point.
Well, it's bound to happen, and I think it's going to happen this week. Jacksonville gave it all they had and got a few breaks, special teams. Yeah. Dude, Jacksonville's special teams was a big difference in that game. Yeah, right. Not their offense, not their defense. Dude, the punter pinned the Packers inside the 5 like 3 different times.
Good for him.
It was crazy. And then another time, it was by inches that the ball went into the end zone. Then they got a punt return for a touchdown. Yeah. I'm just saying that's not going to happen every week.
Right.
So I think Pittsburgh rolls.
There you go. Next game we want to quickly touch